All right, so we've calculated the area of a bunch of different types of shape, and now what we're going to do is kind of put that together to talk about the surface area of like three-dimensional shapes. So what I have here are a couple of prisms. Prism just means what happens if I take a shape like this rectangle right here and I make it 3D, like I stretch it out into a box. Or I can do the same thing with a triangle over here. I started with a triangle and then it's like I pulled back on it to make it three-dimensional. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to figure out the surface area of three-dimensional shapes like this. And the way we're going to do it is kind of like the way we did it with composite figures. So for this rectangular prism over here, it's going to eventually have 6 sides, right? It's going to have this side right here, the other side back here. Then it's going to have, so those two sides are called its bases. The two ends are called its bases. Then it's going to have 4 what are called lateral sides, or lateral faces. So here's one of them up here, right at the top of the box. We'll call that 3. And then it's going to have this side over here, and I'll call that one 4. Then it's going to have the bottom of the box down here, which I'll call 5. Then it's going to have the side kind of in the back that we can't really see much of, so back here. So it altogether has 6 sides. If I want to know the surface area of this rectangular prism, I need to figure out the surface area of each of those 6 sides, then add them together. Same thing if I was doing this triangle over here. So it has 2 bases. It's got this base right here and this base back here. So if I was calculating the surface area of this triangle, I would start with those 2. And then it's going to have 3 lateral faces. So one of them is right here, side kind of facing us. And it's going to have this one kind of on the bottom. And then it's going to have the one back here. So it's going to have a total of 5 sides, 2 bases, and then 3 lateral faces. So this is called surface area of a three-dimensional shape. Over here it would be 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6. So I'm adding all of the faces of this prism together to figure out the surface area of the whole shape. So once again, the sides on the end, so like over here 1 and 2, over here 1 and 2, those are called bases. So the sides on the ends of a prism of a three-dimensional shape are called bases. The other 4, so basically 3, 4, 5, and 6 on the rectangle, or 3, 4, and 5 on the triangle, are called lateral faces. So the area of a prism is equal to the bases plus the lateral faces. So again, that's just saying we have to take all the sides of any three-dimensional shape, add them together. That tells us what the surface area of the whole entire object is. The way to think about this is like, it's like we're going to wrap it, like it's like we're wrapping a Christmas present or something, and we need to know how much wrapping paper we need to use to get the entire thing wrapped. What we're talking about is how much surface area does the box have. Let's do an example here. Rectangular prism has a base with dimensions of 9 feet by 4 feet and a height of 6 feet. So let's just sketch that out. So it has a base with dimensions that are 9 by 4, and it's a prism, so it's going to be kind of like this. Its third dimension is 6 feet. So it looks something like this. So the way to think about it is we have to break this prism down into its 6 sides. Right, since it's a rectangular prism, it's going to have 6 sides. So I'm going to draw each side separately, and then it becomes really easy to solve a problem like this. So I'm going to start with the 2 bases. So basically this side and the side that's going to be the same to that back here. So I know that each base is 9 by 4. Right? It just told me that in the problem, and I know that I have 2 of those. Okay, so I'm going to add those together, plus the 4 lateral faces. Okay, so I'm going to have 2 lateral faces that look like this. Okay, so if I'm looking at this lateral face right here, what are its dimensions? Well, I know it's 4 units wide and 6 units long. Okay, and I have 2 of those. I have the one on this side, and then I have the one that's back here that'll have the same dimensions. So I have 2 of the lateral faces that are 6 by 4. What are the other 2 lateral faces? Well, it's going to be this one here on the bottom, which is going to be 9 by 6. And the one on the top, which is also going to be 9 by 6. So now I need to figure out what each one of these are. So 9 times 4 is 36. So this one right here is 36. Same thing right here. 6 times 4 is 24. So these two are 24s. 9 times 6 is 54. So then I'm going to have 2 54s as well. Now I just need to add these together. And I could try and do it in my head, but I'm feeling lazy. So let's just use the calculator. So the entire surface area of this rectangular prism is going to be 228, and we're talking feet, so square feet. Number 5 is a triangular prism, so it's going to have 5 total sides. One of those sides is this one right here, base, and then another of those sides is this one right here, which is the other base. If I want to calculate the area of a triangle, the area is just base times height divided by 2. And I happen to know both of those. The base here is 6, the height is 8 feet. So the area of these 2 triangles is going to be 6 times 8 divided by 2. I know 6 times 8 is 48. 48 divided by 2 is 24. So, so far what I have are my 2 bases, which are both 24 square feet. So these are my 2 bases. What I'm going to add to that are my lateral sides, or lateral faces. And there's going to be a total of 3 of those. So I'm going to erase the triangular bases for now to get those out of the way. And I'm going to try to kind of sketch in there where my lateral faces are. There's this big one on the front. So let's start with that one. Let's try to start with that one. It's a rectangle, so I would just need base times height. So the area is just going to be the base times the height. So I have a base here of 12. The height, though, this length right here, I don't know yet. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to go back to this 8 and 6, and I'm going to have to use the Pythagorean theorem to figure out what the length of this side is. It's a right triangle, and the side that I need to know is the hypotenuse. So I'm just going to call it x for right now. So this side, the hypotenuse squared, is going to be equal to 8 squared plus 6 squared. So x squared is equal to 64 plus 36, which is 100. And then if I take the square root of both sides, x is 10. So this side right here, and then also this one over here, those are going to be 10 feet long each. So the area of this big rectangle in front is 12 times 10, which is 120. So I can come up here and I can put a 120 right there. Now I need the other 2 lateral faces. Not going to be too hard. One of them is down here on the bottom, and luckily I sort of can see what both dimensions are there. This one is just 6 by 12. Right? If I'm just looking at the bottom side there, I can see that the width is 6, the length is 12. So the area there is just going to be 12 times 6 because we're dealing with a rectangle. Rectangle is just length times width, or base times height. 12 times 6 is 72. So the area of that bottom side then would be 72. And what do I have left? All I have left is this back side. Side in the back here. And what do I know about it? Well, I know one of its dimensions is 8. And how long is it? Well, it's going to be 12, right? This 12, that's the front side here, is going to be the same as back here. So I know that this triangle is this rectangle is 8 by 12. So the area there is just 8 times 12. 8 times 12, well, 8 times 10 is 80, and 8 times 2 is 16. So 8 times 12 is going to be 80 plus 16, or 96. So I have all 5 of my sides here. I have 24 plus 24 plus 120 plus 72 plus 96. I just need to add those together now, and that'll give me the total surface area of my triangular prism. So I have 24 plus 120 plus 72 plus 96. And so 336. So 336 square feet is the surface area of this this triangular prism. Now let's talk about calculating the surface area of a cylinder. What you can probably see is that there aren't really any lateral faces, or on a cylinder there's just sort of one continuous lateral face. And the other part of the surface area of a cylinder are the top and the bottom, or the 2 bases, which are just circles. So there's 2 parts to this. If I want to calculate the surface area of this cylinder, the first thing that I need is the lateral surface, which goes all the way around back to here, and then the 2 bases, which I'll do in a darker color. Hopefully it'll show up. So the 2 bases. Okay, so the 2 bases plus the lateral surface area will tell me the total surface area of a cylinder. And cylinders are pretty easy. The only thing I really need to know is the radius and the height. So I need to know 2 things. I need the radius and the height. So the height is going to be this right here. The radius, of course, would be the radius of the circle at the top and bottom of the cylinder. So as long as I have those 2 things, I can figure it out. I can figure out the surface area. So let's try one down here. It says the radius is 5 inches and the height is 9 inches. So the radius is 5, height is 9. I'm going to use these 2 formulas right here, and I'm going to eventually add those 2 together. So let's start with the lateral surface. So it's kind of like the band that wraps all the way around the cylinder. That's going to be 2 pi RH. So the radius is 5, the height is 9. Plug those in, and now I just have some multiplication to do. I just have to do 2 times pi times 5 times 9. And there's no reason to do these in separate steps. I don't even have to hit equals between each step. I'm just going to go 2 times pi times 5 times 9. So the lateral surface of this cylinder is 282.74. And that's in square inches. Now I'm going to do the bases. So when I want the area of a circle, it's pi r squared, but since there are 2 bases, I'm just going to multiply by 2 right off the bat, right? I want the surface area of this circle on top, but I also want the surface area of this circle on the bottom. So rather than just doing pi r squared and then eventually doubling it, I'm just going to put a 2 there right from the beginning. So it's 2 times pi times whatever my radius is squared. And I know from the problem that the radius is 5 inches. I'm going to square that. I know that 5 squared is 25. So instead of writing another step here, I'm just going to say 2 pi times 25. And now, just like I did up here, it's just multiplication. So 2 times pi times 25 equals 157. We'll call it 157.1. And that's also in square inches. So I have the lateral surface area and I have the surface area of the 2 bases. to figure out the surface area of the cylinder total, I just add those together. So surface area (282.74) 157.1, so 439.84.